Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something that is just totally fascinating. We're embarking on real forensic investigation into this massive legal and philosophical crisis that's unfolding right now at the bleeding edge of modern technology. I'm talking about the crisis of AI authorship. We're going to look past all those polished, user-friendly interfaces and really dig deep into what it actually means to create in an automated world.
So I want to kick things off by having you ask yourself a really profound question. Take a look at the screen here. If an AI generates a masterpiece, who actually controls the physics of creation? Like, are you truly piloting your own digital life, or are we all just quietly surrendering our authorship to an invisible machine? It's this core tension that fundamentally defines our modern digital reality.
The source materials we're looking at today introduce a deeply provocative, pretty disruptive idea. Just read this quote. The AI is merely a blind digital scripter, a von Neumann Babelfish. Now, if you're a fan of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, you already know a Babelfish is a universal translator. And honestly, that is exactly what generative AI is. It blindly ingests one format, like your English text prompt, and it spits out another, like an image or code. But here's the kicker. The machine is completely devoid of intent. It doesn't actually comprehend a single word it processes. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today's explainer. First, the AI creativity illusion. Then, we'll get down to the bare silicon for the probabilistic black box. Next, we'll map the broken causal chain, explore the copyright crisis, and finally, look at the rise of the orchestrator. Section 1. The AI creativity illusion. Peeling back the interface of the AI creator. We absolutely have to peel back the incredibly slick interface of the so-called AI creator. We need to challenge this widespread misconception that AI is some independent thinking entity. Imagine an art historian types a prompt into an image generator. They ask for a Kathy Kollwitz sketch depicting a mother sheltering her child from a data storm. In literally seconds, the system spits out this highly coherent, completely novel image. I mean, it's incredibly impressive, right? It creates this powerful illusion of conscious machine creativity. But look really closely at the output. That data storm is rendered as this alien cascade of glyphs that no human hand ever actually drew. This is a complex, heavily machine-mediated creation. The human just made a request. The stark reality is this. The machine is a statistical enabler. It is not a conscious originator. The philosopher Hannah Arendt points out that true creation requires active, engaged doing that's deeply tied to lived experience. The AI? It completely lacks that biological friction. Think about it. It has never stubbed its toe. It's never felt grief or joy. It literally has no inner self to express. It's really just mimicking statistical patterns from a giant mathematical map. Which brings us to Section 2, the probabilistic black box, down to the bare silicon. To really grasp why this is an illusion, we have to look past the software entirely. We need to go right down to the bare metal of the processor. You might naturally assume that computers are, performing perfect, infallible logic. But look at this staggering number. An incredible 80 to 90% of the heavy computing cycles powering these massive AI models are actually just hardware-level approximations. Developers literally call it the FPU gambler. They aren't doing exact math at the silicon level anymore. They're just making highly educated guesses. We absolutely have to contrast these two paradigms. On one side, we've got traditional deterministic hardware. Think of an arithmetic logic unit executing exact, rigid, pure truth every single time. On the other side, we have probabilistic AI. This is a connectionist block box relying on continuous vector spaces. It guesses. It is inherently prone to hallucinating. The AI's mind, so to speak, is fundamentally fuzzy, which is the complete opposite of the absolute certainty we expect from traditional computing. Let's move to Section 3, the broken causal chain. The mechanical severing of human intent. And this mechanical limitation brilliantly illustrates the exact moment where the illusion of authorship totally falls apart. It's all due to the unpredictable nature of algorithmic distortion. Look at how traditional creation, over on the left, directly connects the human mind to the final work. You paint a stroke, the stroke appears. Simple. But on the Gen AI side, your prompt serves merely as an initial condition for a stochastic system. The AI's probabilistic sampling mathematically severs your human intent from the final expression. The algorithm is making those final inferences completely outside of your direct control. This actually brings up a brilliant analogy from the Thaler versus Perlmutter legal case. Trying to claim authorship of an AI output is like pushing print on a jammed printer that serendipitously creates a cool-looking smear of ink. That hits the nail on the head. Your text prompt is just an instruction. You don't control the machine's exact pixel placement, the specific shading of a line, or the synthesis of the code. The formal philosophical term for this is semantic decapitation. Basically, because the algorithm decides the specific syntax and the final rendering, the fidelity of your human control is broken. Legally speaking, you're reduced to a mere commissioning party. You're essentially the client hiring a robotic painter. You are absolutely not the executing artist yourself. All right, Section 4, the copyright crisis. The legal fallout of the algorithmic muse. So, what does this all mean for the law? The core question is this. Should we actually grant legal monopolies over outputs generated by a stochastic black box? Let's systematically dismantle the 3 philosophical pillars of copyright, because they literally disintegrate when applied to AI. First up, the utilitarian argument. Machines require absolutely zero incentive to create. They just run on electricity, right? Second, the Lockean labor theory. It's the algorithm, not the human prompter, that performs the actual expressive labor. And third, Hegelian personality theory. A statistical model has no human will, no soul, and no personality to extend into the work. The real danger here is an unprecedented, disastrous enclosure of the digital commons. The public domain is supposed to be the default. Copyright is meant to be a limited exception. If we start granting copyright to raw generative AI outputs, we'd trigger a legal quagmire that would completely stifle future innovation. So the crucial point we need to take away is this definitive legal reality. Raw generative AI outputs must default to the public domain. Without a direct causal link to human expression, without the literal sweat of the brow, the only philosophically coherent position is that the raw algorithmic output is completely uncopyrightable. And finally, Section 5, Rise of the Orchestrator, Reclaiming Human Agency and Value. Now, humanity isn't out of the picture here. We're going to look at where true human value actually lies, now that the machine handles the raw generation. To reclaim our power, we have to utilize what the sources call the semiotic bridge. Because the machine is a hallucinating probabilistic engine, we have to rely on strict, deterministic, formatted text, things like JSON or Python scripts. Text is quite literally our universal interface. It's the vital tool we must use to forcefully project our messy human intent into the unyielding exact voltage of the computer processor. Let's see how this builds in practice. Step 1, your beautifully messy associative human intent initiates in your mind. Step 2, you formalize that intent across the semiotic bridge using rigid text. And step 3, that deterministic text perfectly forces the hardware execution. That is how you translate your imagination into physical action without losing your intent to the black box. We are undergoing a massive evolutionary phase shift. Just look at the contrast here. We're moving away from the era of the traditional originator, the lone genius manually rendering every single pixel or typing every single word. And we are entering the era of the modern orchestrator. You now delegate the tedious mechanical execution to the AI, but, and this is key, you retain 100% of the overarching strategic intent, curation, and rhetorical control. But claiming that orchestrator role, it's not passive. It requires intense manual effort. You must accept the mandate of the sovereign pilot. You have to deploy protortion, which is active, rigorous human steering, to reject random algorithmic noise. You must apply the sweat of the brow by manually editing and pruning those outputs. Crucially, you have to accept legal and moral liability, committing agentic tort. You act as the moral crumple zone, taking full responsibility for whatever the machine produces. I want to wrap up this explainer by leaving you with one final, deeply provocative question to ponder. As we plunge deeper into this agentic era, totally surrounded by powerful algorithms, will you blindly settle for a facsimile of intelligence and passively accept the machine's distortion? Or will you actively wield the divine deterministic script, embrace your biological friction, and claim the true magic of authorship? The choice to step up as the sovereign pilot of your own digital legacy is entirely yours. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning the systems around you, and I'll catch you next time.